Hey friends, Corinne here from Sweet and Sassy Stamps and the Stampers Boutique. I have a fun vintage holiday card for you today that I'm going to create using our Christmas Botanicals stamp set. This set is so beautiful, and honestly I have not used it enough because we just have so many holiday stamps, but this is just the flowers are just gorgeous on this set, and I love how they lend well to this vintage sort of style when you're creating your own pattern paper. So I am taking a thick piece of white cardstock. This is a Nina Classic Crest Solar White, 110 pound weight, and I'm just stamping all over the entire thing to create a background. So yes, that gorgeous vintage background on the sample card did not start out like that. And then you're even going to see how strange that I am using some sort of a pink color, magenta, almost a magenta color, to paint my flowers. So I'm doing a loose watercolor kind of effect. I am spritzing my paper before I go and lay that color down. It just helps to kind of move it around. This is not watercolor paper, but because it's so thick, it does really hold the water well. So if you see me spraying in between, that's just to add a little bit of water to the surface before I go and add the paint to it. And this is just a very loose watercolor style. I'm not doing anything fancy. I'm not even really being super careful. I'm just kind of laying it on and getting that color in there. Then I'm going to take a green, and of course I'm going to do the same thing to add some green to this. So I've got lots of leaves, and I even stamped a couple of extra leaves in some of those open spaces, and I'm just going to do the same thing. Just lightly lay down some color with just a paintbrush and some water. The watercolors that I'm using are the Jane Davenport Brights palette. This is one of my favorite little watercolor palettes. Unfortunately, it's really hard to find these days, apparently, but I'll probably use it till it's gone. So there are definitely lots of other cool watercolors on the market that you could also use. You probably already have some. So now I'm going to come in with some yellow. Just add a little bit to the centers of my flowers, and then I'm also going to go ahead and use kind of a red color to color in my little berries. And again, I'm not being super careful. I'm kind of even being a little bit messy because I'm not trying to make it perfect. This vintage paper look, it's meant to look aged and kind of messy, so no big deal. Now I'm taking some of that same reddish color and flicking it all over my paper. Now this is where the vintage look comes in. So I'm going to take my brushed corduroy Distress Oxide ink, and I am just ink blending that all around the edges of my dry base, my pattern base, I guess you could say. I did use a heat tool to dry that so that it's not super wet. It is still damp. I will tell you, it is still damp. So, and we want it to be a little bit damp, and you'll see here in a second why. Now I'm coming in with some Walnut Stain Distress Oxide ink to add even darker edges to this, this pattern piece. And you can just sort of see how it's just really coming together. I'm just really loving how this turns out. Now I'm going to put a little bit of this ink on my mat and I did spritz it with some water, and now I'm just adding some brown ink flicks of paint splatters, basically all over my card or my background design. So now I went and dried that. Now I'm going to rough up the edges. If you have a distressing tool, you could certainly use that. I did not have my distressing tool my edge distressor, I should say. I didn't have it handy, so I just did the old school style where you just take the edge of a scissors. Just be very careful if you do that, not to cut yourself. And now I am just roughing up this piece. It is still damp, like I mentioned before. I didn't want to fully dry it, so makes it a little bit easier to kind of crumble and just do some of those fun edges. And then I go and I do dry most of it, and now I'm curling in those edges that have kind of been torn and mangled a little bit, and I'm adding a little bit of the that same walnut stain ink to those edges as well. So on the back of that it's white, but on the front it's nice and vintage distressed looking. So now I'm just taking a piece of brown cardstock, and this is going to be the mat for my pattern paper. Just trimming that down, kind of sizing it up. Because the paper was wet and we've kind of mangled it and crumbled it and all the things, it's not going to be exact if you were trying to just like do normal measurements. So that's why I'm kind of eyeballing it, because it sort of shrinks the paper when you do all those things. So now I'm just kind of, well, trimming just a little tiny bit more off. I decided I wanted a little bit less of that brown sticking out, and just kind of eyeballing that and lining it up to figure out where I want to go next. So now there you can see that's how it started, a white piece of paper. I'm going to go ahead and use my art glitter glue to just fill that whole back with some glue, and then I'm going to glue that down. Now because there's some dimension with all of the wrinkles and things, I am kind of really pushing down in areas, but I still want to keep those fun little torn edges folded down. Then I wanted this to be popped up with some more dimension, so I'm going to just go ahead and use some foam tape to do that. So once all of that is peeled off, we're going to pop that right there onto my card base. And now I'm going to use, so this is a sentiment from the Christmas Sentiments stamp set that we recently released. It's a beautiful set full of a variety of sentiments. I had already stamped it on this piece of paper, and I want to do a little fishtail banner, so that's what I'm doing here. I'm lining that up on my grid and finding the center, and then just turning it around and trimming into the into that center spot to make a nice fishtail edge. Now I'm kind of inspecting, and I decided I wanted a little bit more or a little bit less on the top and bottom of that. So now I'm just kind of eyeballing and figuring out, okay, how do I want to keep my fishtail the same, that it's all uniform. So I just kind of did a little trick there, and now it's satisfactory. So now I'm just using, again, some foam tape to pop that up. And then the final touch is going to be this wonderful gold metallic ink, Delicata ink. And I just put a little bit of that on my glass mat, and I'm picking that up. And first I colored in all of the, I sort of did it off screen. I missed recording that part, but I did color in all the centers and now, of the flowers, I'm sorry. And now I am just flicking it all over there. You can really see if you look closely, and definitely you want to have this in high definition so you can see all the details, like the gold shimmer that you can see here when you look up close. All right, guys, so that's it for today. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you have an amazing day. Until next time, happy stamping.